Hello everyone, and welcome back to our deep dive into the lore of Final Fantasy XIV for beginners. Our two previous videos in this series tackled the ancient history and origins of our tale, as well as defined some terms and ideas from the game. But now, it's time for the story. So sit back, relax, and let me regale you with the story of Final Fantasy XIV before A Realm Reborn. So, you're probably saying, Jesse, how on earth are you going to cover an entire MMORPG story in a short and concise way that won't waste hours of our time? Well, while 1.0 is the introduction to many of the characters we know and love, it really was the Tale of Two Imperials. Nael van Darnus, the White Raven, and Gaius van Belsar, the Black Wolf. If these two seem like some pretty scary guys, they should. They're some of the best the Empire has, and the ones spearheading its war machine. As I mentioned in the previous history video, 50 years prior to the start of A Realm Reborn, the Garleans began their rise to power and conquest of the world, culminating in the great victory over Alamigo. And it was the competing visions of these two men on what to do next that would decide not only the fate of Eorzea, but the world. You see, the Garlean Empire's first conquests were the nations of the East, and it was there they learned the awesome power of the Primals, these summoned magical beings that we discussed previously in another video. These Primals inflicted so much damage to the war effort that it became the primary goal of all future Imperial campaigns to prevent their summoning, especially so on the now opening Western Front. It was this fear that drove the Empire. How do we defeat our enemies when they have access to magics and powers that we do not? It's what drove their technological advancements and tactical decisions. It's what sparked their desire to unearth the secrets of the long-lost Allagan Empire and derive any advantage they could from them. And the result was Project Meteor. This is where Nael van Darnus comes in. A ruthless man, a descendant of one of the Empire's founders and commander of the 7th Legion. He was, in fact, so ruthless that he drew the attention of the Emperor. But the Emperor's interests were much deeper than his commander's skills. It was reported that Nael's family history stretched all the way back to the Allagans. And again, if you need a refresher on them, go check the History of Hydaelyn video. So, to the south, deep in the heart of Bozja, the Empire began testing Allagan artifacts donated by House Darnus, with the knowledge that long ago the Allagans had not only found a way to deal with the Primals, but also defeat them. And the Empire, through this, discovered that Dalamud, the smaller second red moon, was in fact not a celestial body, but an ancient satellite of Allagan creation, a powerful weapon to unleash on Eorzea. However, just days before the plan's approval, the program's chief scientist, Midas Nangarlan, began his attempts to contact the satellite to confirm their theories, which were almost immediately proven true, as the immense power trapped within the satellite for 5,000 years was unleashed on Bozja, destroying the city, the research, the Empire's top scientists, and countless Allagan artifacts and records. And that seems like it would have been the end for Project Meteor, with the Emperor losing interest in a power he couldn't control, but not for Nael. His house would not be shamed. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, in Eorzea, Gaius van Belsar, legatus or high-ranking general of the 14th Legion and man responsible for the fall of numerous cities, took control of Alamigo. With the Empire's major military threat in Eorzea conquered, things should have proceeded without trouble against the weaker remaining city-states. But repercussions of the failure at Bozja were far-reaching. Midas Nangarlan's son, Sid, and one of Gaius's wards, a brilliant mind in his own right, defected to the Eorzeans with the knowledge of what horrors the Empire was prepared to unleash on the world in the name of conquest. With one of the greatest scientific minds of the Empire now gone, and with him untold knowledge of their plans, Gaius pushed ahead with his invasion, one that would surely make any aid Sid could provide moot, and finish off any Eorzean resistance swiftly and completely. He would launch the entirety of his fleet at the heart of the continent, Mordona, a place not only located centrally between all the city-states to cut them off from one another, but also the nexus of all the ethereal energies of the realm, seemingly flowing into the nearby Silvertear Lake. To the Empire, this was a land of little more than strategic importance, but to those who lived on the land, it was a place of magic and mystery and great power. Gaius, fearing his enemies might use this ethereal energy to summon primals or in some other way draw the Empire into a long and bloody conflict, chose to ignore the legends of the land, the tales of this mysterious place's power. One such legend being the tale of the lake's guardian, the father of all dragons, Midgardsormr. As legend would have it, long, long ago, the father of dragons was made the guardian of the lake by the 12, the ancient pantheon of gods and protectors of Eorzea that we discussed in a previous video. And now the Empire would learn those legends were true. With the full force of the 14th Legion bearing down on Silvertear, the Guardian surfaced. Summoning forth his dragon children, he laid waste to the Imperial airships. Coiling his own body around the capital ship, he brought it down to the earth, scattering the remaining 14th Legion. The Empire was routed. But as Midgardsormr roared with triumph, the cerulean fuel cells in the fallen capital ship ignited, destroying it, Midgardsormr, and in a brilliant flash turning the lands of Mordona into a crystallized wasteland. Gaius had been defeated, not by the armies of man, but by a totally unexpected force, his hubris leading to an Imperial retreat back to Alamigo and a halt to their invasion. Not only did this defeat serve to embolden the city-states of Eorzea, but also its beastmen tribes, who found the new crystallized Mordona an easy means to summoning their primal deities. If anything, Gaius's actions had made it worse. The remnants of the 14th would set about constructing a massive, fortified barrier to hide themselves behind, known as Baelsar's Wall. And from behind it, they would wait for an opportunity to present itself. And it appeared that that opportunity would be grasped by another. Nael, still reeling from his failures, seeing the war effort stalled, caught the ear of the Emperor once more, with claims of mastering the ability to control the Allagan satellite. And so, on his orders, the Emperor authorized the renewal of the Meteor Project, giving Nael and the 7th Legion complete control over the 14th, and Gaius and the Imperial war effort. Eorzea would fall, no matter the cost. All was not well with the city-states, however, as their victory over the Empire would have its own grim consequences. The Beastmen tribes, who before were a nuisance, had now become a major threat. The Sharlayans, who had insisted on maintaining a peace, brokering deals and neutrality, and who for some time had maintained a colony on the Eorzean mainland, would finally abandon it, its scholarly inhabitants returning to their island homeland in order to avoid what was sure to be more bloodshed. Ishgard, the theocracy to the north, would pull their forces back to continue their unending war with the dragons, who were now without their progenitor, Midgardsormr. And soon, even relations between Ul'dah, Gridania, and Limsa would sour, the Eorzean alliance existing now in merely name more than function. It was in this time of uncertainty that the Adventurers Guild was formed, a way to give former soldiers and those with the taste for the dangerous a role to play in this new Eorzea. This is finally where you come in, an adventurer, seeking fame or fortune or maybe just a little fun. But this is Final Fantasy, so you know that won't last long. Because back in Sharlayan, talented mage and distinguished scholar Louisoix Levelier and a collection of his prized pupils, scholars who had gained the title of Archon, would form the Circle of Knowing, a secret group that would oppose the Sharlayan Forum's non-intervention and set out to save Eorzea, not just from the Empire, but from something far worse. Well versed in ancient legends, Louisoix was aware of the prophecy which foretold of the coming of the 7th Umbral Calamity. For more info on what the calamities are and how bad they can get, see the previous history video. Working behind the scenes, Louisoix dispatched Thancred Waters to Ul'dah, Y'shtola Rule to Limsa, and Papalimo and Yida to Gridania, in order to convince the city-states to take the offensive to the Empire. Now, if that sounds kind of familiar to those of you who have played A Realm Reborn, it's because it's roughly the same thing over again in that game. You meet all these characters in the same places, roughly trying to do the same thing. They're just reintroduced to you all over again. So we're not going to deep dive into all of that here. We'll save that for the Realm Reborn video. Now, having said all that, there's actually one thing I really should include right here that will definitely come back in A Realm Reborn, but for our purposes, it starts right here. And that's the Echo. The Echo is a gift or a curse, whatever it is, it's something that began to appear after the Battle of Silvertear Lake. Those who were granted the Echo bear witness to a star shower from a burning sky and hear a mysterious voice calling to them. They're granted the memories of others and disturbing visions, none of which they have control over when it happens or how it happens. A great example can be seen early on in the 1.0 trailer where the main character is suddenly whisked away while talking to his friends. Then, after the vision ends, is right back where he was. To be clear, this is an incredibly rare thing. There are other characters you'll meet in the world that have it, but it is very few. This is where Minfilia, who we'll meet again in A Realm Reborn, comes in. Her role in 1.0 is as the leader of a group who attempts to support and protect those affected by the Echo. But again, we'll meet her and all the other Archons and talk about the Echo again in A Realm Reborn. Now back to the story. While the others ventured to the city-states, Urianger traveled to the countryside, spreading the word of the Dark Prophecy far and wide, and while it earned him some contempt because no one wants to hear about the end of the world, it was secretly a plan to draw the attention of the Empire. If they were to pursue this heretical doomsayer, it would draw their eyes away from Louisoix's other plans. One of which was to figure out what the Beastmen were up to and why they were summoning primals, and more importantly, how they learned to do it in the first place. Enlisting the help of the students of Aldessian, another group of scholars from Sharlayan, to research the primal phenomenon, we learn that summoning primals requires a vast amount of ether. Ether being the essential building block for all magic and life, and using it in such high quantities, they would begin to drain it from the world itself, leaving the planet devoid of life. And for some reason, they were being taught to do this by a secretive group called the Asians. But we're gonna stop that line of inquiry right now because I'm gonna keep it cryptic. Like I said in the last video, while the men of the Empire and Eorzea wage wars, there are those in the shadows who are up to no good. Anyway, moving quickly along. While the Empire hid behind Belsar's wall, the Archons would not only try to warn the people of Eorzea of an impending calamity, but also try to impress on its leaders the importance of stopping the Beastmen and a potentially worse threat. Backing the Archons in their endeavor was Cid Garland and his new advancements in technology given to the Eorzeans after his defection. He would be indispensable not only in this, but in the coming days, knowing of Neil Van Darnus' desire to bring down Dalamud. So your adventurer goes from aiding the people of the city-states to joining with the Circle of Knowing in an attempt to stop the Beastmen before they do too much damage to the world. And although you overcome one of the tribes and their Fire Lord Ifrit, perched above the battle is the White Raven's airship. The Imperial, having observed your struggle, entreating you to speak with him, Nail warned of a threat that loomed over not just Eorzea, but the entire world. That's what Eorzeans didn't understand. The Empire merely wanted to save the savage nations of the world, unite them under one banner, and protect them from the same prophetic danger that Urianger spoke of. But you're the hero, so no way were you interested in listening to a most villainous monologue, and you told that guy to go kick rocks. Which, in hindsight, probably wasn't the smartest thing to do. Nail unleashed a mysterious dark power, rupturing the ethereal currents, saturating the area with ether. And although you managed to survive, in one fell swoop, Nail has made all of your efforts futile. The Beastmen now have access to more ether than ever before. Ifrit would return, and perhaps stronger than ever. But this action baffled Louisoix. Why would a soldier of the Empire do this? Their whole objective was to stop the primals and prevent their summoning. Surely this went against the Empire's entire reason for the initial invasion. It was Cid and his team at the Ironworks who discovered the truth. The Aether of the realm was in chaos. No longer did it flow towards Silvertear Lake like it had done in the past. Now, just like in the days of the Allagan Empire, it rose skyward towards Dalamud. The situation became more dire with the discovery that the Empire had secretly taken Mordona while you were dealing with the primals. A group of Alamegan resistance fighters seeking revenge decide to attack the Imperial position at Silvertear and steal an airship, thinking it relatively unguarded. But upon arrival, the entire force is killed. and you come face to face with Gaius, now serving under Nael. Mordona had in fact become a staging ground for the final phase of Van Darnus' plan, a lunar transmitter, a way to contact and control the Red Moon. With it, Dalamud would break free from its orbit and decimate Eorzea. Luckily, with the help of your friends, you managed to escape Gaius and the secret Imperial force. But in your escape, the Imperial sees potential. Because something has changed in Nael. Gaius noticed it, despite all the soldiers under his command being taken by the White Raven's zeal. He hasn't. It isn't until you meet Nael again that you yourself notice the change. Now he mocks the Emperor's goals. The events unfolding were not simply a means to conquer Eorzea, but to him, the culmination of a life's work. But to what end? Louisoix once again turns to Cid, a man who has always had close ties to the origins of the Meteor Project. Meanwhile, you and the Circle of Knowing work to unite the city-states for an attack on Mordona, Nael, and the combined forces of the 7th and 14th Legions. They would once again create the grand companies of old to fight on behalf of their people and unite to take on this threat. But this enemy would seem insurmountable until a gift was given to the Eorzean Alliance from an unexpected source. An Imperial airship making its way to Mordona would be shot down, and with it, critical information on board about Nael's plans, his defenses, and more. After its recovery, Cid realizes it was Gaius who shot down the ship and allowed the information to fall into your hands. And with that, the Alliance launched the attack on the Imperial stronghold, where you once again meet Nael, who is now completely out of his mind. The Imperial general seemingly referring to the moon as a god, a divine being that he will bring into this world, he the manifestation of its will. His plan was never to use Dalamud as a weapon for the Empire, but to bring about its return to the world, and he was willing to sacrifice himself to do it. He is, at this point, completely lost. The man even does the crazy RPG bad guy walk through fire. Using his new powers, he raised a long-buried Allagan ruin to the heavens, where he begins to pull the moon towards the surface. But he does so without the support of the Empire or technology, to the marvel of his men. He has done something that should be impossible. And as soldiers from the grand companies gather below, the White Raven unleashes fire from the sky upon them. A way to the island must be found, and once again, we turn to Cid. Cid, who has put a lot of the blame for this whole thing on himself and his family's association with the Meteor Project, offers to take you, the adventurer who has somehow made it this far, to the floating island to confront Nael. But when you arrive, you find someone entirely different. Dalamud has been slowly warping the mind of the Imperial for years, enthralling him. Whatever he once was, he is no longer. Madness has consumed him, and in the battle that ensues, the White Raven, now empowered by ancient magics, reaches for the heavens to finish the deed before being struck down. And while the forces of Eorzea celebrate their victory in Gridania, Nael's purpose had been fulfilled. The Red Moon still descended. Yet, as if a sign that hope still remained, symbols of the 12 began to appear all around Eorzea. Louisoix, realizing this could be a sign from the gods, encouraged the people of the realm to seek them out and pray at them. But it was, in fact, he who had secretly carved them into the stones. They were to be like spiritual anchors for the ritual that could potentially save the realm from the falling astral body. But it's just a little easier to say, the gods can help us, rather than, this is a last-ditch effort and I need everyone involved. And it was there, at one of the symbols, that Gaius would make his last appearance. He had seen the madness of Nael, and although he sought the conquest of Eorzea, he was no monster, he was not like that man. So he had worked against him secretly, and now would be pulling the 14th Legion back to Alamigo. But the 7th, they were completely lost to the cult of Nael Van Darnus and had chosen to remain to see their commander's dream come true. Gaius bids you to stop Dalamud, save Eorzea, and maybe if you succeed, the two of you would meet again someday. And so the Eorzean Alliance and adventurers from all over the realm would march to the Carteneau flats of Mordona, Dalamud rapidly approaching to buy Louisoix time to perform his ritual and save the world. But none knew of the terror trapped inside Dalamud for thousands of years, wanting to be free. And that is how Final Fantasy XIV 1.0 ends, and A Realm Reborn begins. I'm sure there will be a lot of people that say, but what about this storyline or that storyline, Jesse? I made the executive decision that while it would have been cool to bring up some of the smaller characters and plot points, the vast majority are just reintroduced in A Realm Reborn, and the Final Fantasy XIV team does a really great job of acknowledging that most people didn't play 1.0, and at this point, no one can. So while yes, there is an alchemist quest chain that calls back to the Gubu rampage at the start of 1.0, or a certain gentleman who takes on the moon, then makes his return, if you really want to find out those stories, go check out the many, many amazing resources out there for a deep dive. But that is it for me. Until next time, when we tackle 2.0 A Realm Reborn, thanks for watching.